Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the world of adolescent girls.
Okay.
We're going to be taking a look at
Very good.
Reviving Ophelia by Mary Pipher, a book that
All
really
right.
dives into the challenges girls face during adolescence.
Cool.
Um, it's interesting. One of the things that Pipher talks about is this analogy of girls disappearing
Yeah.
into a Bermuda Triangle during this time.
It is a powerful image, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like we see these vibrant, confident girls before puberty,
right.
and then suddenly as they hit adolescence,
Yeah.
it's like a part of them vanishes.
Mm-hmm.
Their spark dims. They become more withdrawn,
Yeah.
self-critical, maybe even depressed. It really
Yeah,
does
right.
feel like a mystery.
It makes you wonder, what are the forces at play here?
Right.
What's causing this shift?
Mm-hmm.
Piper argues that it's not just hormones or natural growing pains.
Yeah.
She points to something much deeper,
Uh-huh.
the impact of American culture itself.
I see.
She calls it girl poisoning, and that's a pretty strong term.
That is strong. Yeah.
So what exactly does she mean by that?
Well, Pfeiffer's argument is that American culture,
Yeah,
particularly in the time this book was written,
right.
bombards girls with messages about what it means to be feminine,
Mm-hmm.
often very narrow and limiting messages.
Yeah.
It's an emphasis on beauty above all else,
Right.
on being thin,
Yeah.
on attracting boys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just coming from parents or teachers.
Girl.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Magazines, TV, music,
Yeah.
even the way girls treat each other.
Yeah.
It creates this pressure cooker of expectations
Yeah.
that can be incredibly damaging.
You can really see that in some of the stories that
Yeah.
Pfeiffer shares, like her cousin Polly.
Uh-huh.
She was this total tomboy,
Yeah.
full of energy and confidence,
Yeah.
always climbing trees and getting dirty.
Right.
But when she hit puberty, she felt this immense pressure
I see.
to change, to become more feminine, more passive.
Mhm.
She even started dieting and worrying
Oh.
about her appearance constantly. It's like
Mm.
she lost that carefree spirit she had as a child.
Exactly. And that's one of the tragedies that
Right.
Pfeiffer highlights.
Yeah.
These girls are being told that their worth is tied to
Mm-hmm.
their appearance,
Mm-hmm.
to how well they fit
Oh, yeah.
into this very narrow mold.
Yeah.
And when they inevitably fail to meet these impossible standards,
Mm-hmm.
their self-esteem takes a major hit.
Yeah.
It's no wonder so many girls start to feel lost
Right.
and insecure during this time.
It's heartbreaking, really, and it's not just isolated cases.
Right.
Pfeiffer noticed this same shift in her own daughter, Sarah.
Mm.
She went from being this creative, curious kid
Yeah.
to becoming more withdrawn and moody as she
Yeah.
entered adolescence.
It's a
It makes you think about all the girls who go through something
Okay.
similar, who lose that spark, that sense of self.
And it's not just individual stories.
Mhm.
Pfeiffer observed this pattern in groups of girls, too. She describes this anecdote about
Okay.
a horticulturist leading a tour for a group of girls,
Yeah.
showing them all these different plants.
Okay.
The younger girls were completely enthralled, asking questions,
Mm.
wanting to touch and smell everything.
Right.
But the older girls held back,
Interesting.
almost disdainful of the younger girls' enthusiasm.
Wow.
It's as if they learned to suppress their
Yeah.
natural curiosity and excitement,
Right.
almost like it wasn't cool to be interested anymore.
That anecdote really highlights the power of those cultural forces, doesn't it? It's like there's this unspoken pressure for girls to conform, to fit in,
Yeah.
even if it means silencing their true selves.
Right.
And that leads us to one of Pfeiffer's key concepts,
Okay.
this idea of girls splitting into true and false selves.
Interesting.
Can you explain that a bit more?
Absolutely. Pfeiffer argues that in order to cope with these
Yeah.
conflicting messages and pressures,
Mm-hmm.
girls often create a false self, a persona they present to the world that conforms to these expectations.
Right.
They may hide their true interests,
Yeah.
suppress their emotions, or even engage in behaviors they don't truly enjoy,
Oh.
all in an effort to be accepted to fit in.
And that makes me think of Cayenne,
Mhm.
one of the girls Pfeiffer profiles in the book.
Okay.
Her story is so powerful and really illustrates this split.
Yeah.
She contracts herpes and then becomes increasingly
Uh-oh.
withdrawn and depressed.
Mm.
She feels like she has to maintain this perfect facade,
Yeah.
hiding her true feelings and struggles.
Cayenne's story is so poignant because it really gets to the heart of what so many girls experience.
Yeah.
She starts dieting obsessively, trying to achieve this ideal body type.
Mm-hmm.
She distances herself from her parents,
Right.
who represent her old, uncool self,
Yeah.
and clings to her peer group, even though they're engaging in risky behavior.
Right.
It's like she's desperately trying to fit in to be accepted, even if it means sacrificing her own well-being.
And that recurring dream she has, that nightmare where she's being cut up and fed to a goat. It's such a vivid image of the fragmentation.
It is.
The sense of losing your wholeness. It's like she's being torn apart by these conflicting expectations and pressures.
That dream, and the similar ones other girls shared with Pipher, speak volumes about the anxiety and fear that many girls experience during this time. It's like they're trying to silence their true selves.
Right.
To suppress the parts that don't fit this narrow cultural mold.
Right.
And the consequences, as we see with Cayenne, can be devastating.
So if girls are feeling this pressure to conform, this need to create a false self, what's happening internally?
Right.
What are the developmental changes going on? During adolescence, that might be
that's a great question.
Contributing to these struggles.
Yeah, it's important to remember that adolescence is a time of immense change physically, emotionally, and even cognitively. All of these changes are happening simultaneously, creating a perfect storm of sorts that can make this period especially challenging for girls.
Yeah, so we're talking about a lot of internal pressure and expectations, but what about the way that girls think during adolescence?
Exactly.
I mean, that adds another layer of complexity to everything. What's going on there?
Well, Pipher talks about how adolescents are still developing that capacity for abstract thought.
Right.
And that means they often think in really concrete terms. And that can lead to some interesting, sometimes frustrating thought patterns.
Right.
One common one is overgeneralizing.
Okay.
You know, where one bad experience can lead them to believe that everything is terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Or they're a complete failure.
I get that.
Oh, totally.
It's like when you spill your lunch in the cafeteria.
And suddenly you feel like the entire school is judging you.
Yes.
And your life is over.
I remember feeling that way all the time in middle school.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Along with overgeneralizing, there's this phenomenon that Pipher calls the imaginary audience.
Right.
It's this feeling that everyone is constantly watching and judging you.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the girl in the book who was mortified because her mom brought binoculars to her soccer game?
Oh, my gosh. Yes.
She was convinced that everyone would think her mom was a total dork for paying such close attention.
It seems so silly now.
It does.
But I bet at the time,
Yeah.
it felt like a huge deal.
Huge.
And on a deeper level, it shows how these thought patterns that are totally normal for their age can really fuel those feelings of insecurity and self-consciousness.
And it highlights the need for adults to understand what's happening developmentally.
Yeah.
We need to respond with patience and empathy rather than judgment or dismissal.
Exactly.
These girls aren't trying to be difficult.
Right.
They're literally just trying to make sense of the world.
Yeah.
With a brain that's still under construction.
It makes you realize how much we expect of teenage girls.
Yeah.
They're dealing with these intense internal changes, these confusing thought patterns.
Right.
And then they're also navigating a whole new set of social dynamics.
Totally.
Especially within their families.
Especially within their families.
I mean, think about it. We're asking them to figure out who they are,
It's a
where they fit in,
Yeah.
and how to make sense of this increasingly complex world, all while their brains are still developing.
It's a lot to ask. And the family dynamic adds another layer of complexity.
Sure.
We're talking about this push and pull between needing independence and still needing that connection with their families.
And that tension is tough for everyone.
It is.
Parents often feel confused and hurt by their daughters pulling away. They miss that closeness they once had and may struggle to understand this new person that their daughter is becoming.
It's a natural part of adolescence, but it can be especially tricky in our culture where there's so much emphasis on breaking away from the family and forging your own path. It's like we celebrate individuality to such an extent that we sometimes forget the importance of those family bonds.
Pipher really highlights this conflict through different stories in the book. We see girls like Cayenne who desperately want to assert their independence but still crave their parents' love and support. Then you have Francesca, who's adopted, and she's not only dealing with the typical adolescent challenges, but also trying to figure out her racial identity and where she fits in.
Francesca's story is so powerful.
Yes, it is.
Because it shows how complex family dynamics can be.
For sure.
And then there's Jody, who was raised in a very strict religious family.
Okay.
She appears to have a pretty smooth adolescence.
Yeah.
But she constantly questions if she's suppressing parts of herself just to fit in.
It really makes you think about the long-term consequences of conforming,
Yeah.
even if it seems to make things easier in the moment.
Right.
It makes you wonder, is she really living her own life or just following a script that someone else wrote for her?
Yeah.
But, you know, in all of these stories, despite their very different backgrounds and circumstances, there's this common thread, this need to balance individuality with connection.
It's that age-old struggle of figuring out who you are while staying connected to the people you love.
Totally.
And it's definitely not easy.
No, it's not. And in the midst of all of this, their peer group becomes incredibly important.
It does.
It's like their friends become the surrogate family, offering a sense of connection and understanding that they may not be getting elsewhere.
That's so true. But Pipher also points out that peer groups can be incredibly cruel.
They can.
Girls can be each other's worst critics.
Right.
Especially when it comes to conforming to those narrow definitions of femininity we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're policing each other.
Totally.
Making sure everyone stays in line.
Yes.
And if you dare to step outside those boundaries, the punishments can be brutal.
It reminds me of that game Germs that Pipher describes being played at her school.
Oh, yeah.
Girls who were considered unpopular or different were labeled as having germs, and if you touch them, you'd be infected.
Right.
It seems so childish on the surface.
It does.
But it's actually a pretty chilling example of how exclusionary and cruel these social dynamics can be.
It's all about creating an in-group and an out-group.
Right.
And making sure everyone knows where they stand.
Totally.
And sadly, this type of behavior doesn't end in adolescence.
That's true.
We see it play out in adult social circles, workplaces, even online communities.
Everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And Pipher argues that this peer culture has gotten even more intense in recent decades.
She does.
She talks about drugs and alcohol being more readily available, sexual harassment being rampant, and the pressure to engage in risky behavior being incredibly strong.
Yeah.
It's like they're facing all of these pressures to conform and fit in at a time when the stakes are even higher.
And she notes how sexual harassment has become more explicit, more aggressive, often taking the form of unwanted physical touching.
Right.
It's a really disturbing trend.
It is.
And it makes you wonder, what messages are boys receiving about sexuality and power that contribute to this behavior?
What are they learning?
And what's even more discouraging is that this behavior is often minimized or excused by adults.
I know.
She talks about a case in California where a group of high school athletes were accused of raping several girls, but instead of being held accountable, they were actually treated like heroes by some members of the community.
That case is a stark reminder.
It is.
How deeply ingrained these harmful attitudes about gender and power can be.
Yeah.
And for girls, it reinforces the fear and vulnerability that they already feel.
It's a difficult reality to face. But amidst all of this, Pipher also emphasizes the importance of girls finding meaning and purpose.
Right.
It's a time when they're asking those big questions about life, death, and their place in the world.
It's that classic existential crisis.
It is.
And it can manifest in different ways.
For sure.
Some girls turn to religion, seeking comfort and guidance from their faith. Others rebel against their upbringing, questioning everything they've been taught.
It's all part of figuring out what you believe.
It is.
What values you hold dear, and what kind of person you want to be in the world.
Yeah.
And that can be a healthy and necessary part of development.
Absolutely. But for girls who are already feeling lost and uncertain, this spiritual searching can become another source of anxiety.
Right.
They might feel pressure to conform to their family's beliefs or feel completely adrift in a sea of uncertainty.
And Pipher makes a really interesting observation about the role of music during this time.
Right.
She says that music can be a powerful outlet for girls' emotions.
Right.
A way to connect with something larger than themselves.
It's that feeling of hearing a song and thinking,
yes,
this is exactly how I feel. They understand me.
Exactly.
But Pipher also cautions that the type of music
right.
you listen to can be really influential.
Yeah.
She contrasts the music of Elvis Presley with some more contemporary artists and notes the huge difference in messages about sexuality and relationships.
It's like she's saying, pay attention to the messages girls are receiving about their bodies, about their worth, and about what's expected of them in relationships.
Right.
And remember, those messages are coming from everywhere.
They are.
Their peers, the media, even the music they listen to.
And this brings us to a crucial point.
Yeah.
Not all girls are equipped to handle this onslaught of pressure. Some, like Lori, have a strong sense of self, a solid support system, and the ability to think critically about the messages they're receiving.
Right.
They're able to navigate the challenges without losing sight of who they are.
Yeah, but for girls who are struggling, who are feeling lost and overwhelmed, the consequences can be much more serious.
They can.
And this is where Pipher's call to action comes in.
Okay.
She challenges us to recognize the cultural forces that are at play and to create a more supportive and empowering environment for girls.
It's not about sheltering them from the world, but rather about giving them the tools they need to navigate it successfully.
Absolutely.
We need to teach them to think critically, to assert their boundaries, to value their unique qualities, and to resist the pressure to conform.
It's about recognizing that adolescence is a time when girls are forming their identity, their values, and their sense of self. And the messages they receive during this time will have a profound impact on the women they become.
And this is where the concept of resilience becomes so important.
Yeah.
Pipher doesn't just leave us with a problem to solve. She offers hope.
Yeah.
She highlights stories of girls who, despite facing all these pressures, managed to stay true to themselves.
Lori's story is a great example of that. She's this talented musician, and she doesn't let go of that passion. Even when her friends think it's not cool, she has this inner strength and a supportive family that helps her navigate those challenges.
Lori's story really challenges the idea that girls are just passive victims of these cultural forces. She shows us that resilience isn't some magical quality that some girls have and others don't.
Yeah.
It's something that can be nurtured, fostered, strengthened.
That's a really hopeful message.
It is.
It means that we can actually do something to help girls develop that resilience. It's not about sheltering them, but about equipping them with the tools they need to face these challenges head on.
Think about the adults in Lori's life.
Yeah.
Her parents encourage her individuality, her love for music, and they support her even when her choices clash with what her peers are doing. They provide a safe space for her to explore who she is without judgment.
And it's not just Mary Pipher shares stories of other girls who find their own paths to resilience. Francesca, who we talked about earlier, finds strength in connecting with her Native American heritage. It becomes a source of pride and empowerment for her.
Even Cayenne, who initially seems so lost in that false self, eventually starts to reclaim her voice and assert her boundaries. She starts seeking out healthier relationships and standing up for what she believes in.
That's awesome.
It's a reminder that even when girls make mistakes or stumble along the way, they're capable of incredible growth and change.
It's like these stories are showing us that there's always hope, even in the darkest of times.
There is.
It's about recognizing that girls have an incredible capacity for strength, courage, and determination.
They do.
But they need our support. They need adults who believe in them, who listen to them, and who help them navigate this often treacherous terrain.
So what does this all mean for you?
Right.
For the girls in your life? For the future of girls in our culture? Pipher leaves us with a really powerful question.
Okay.
Considering how profoundly girls are shaped by the culture they live in, how can we create a culture that supports their wholeness and authenticity?
Wow.
A culture that nourishes their spirits rather than pushing them to suppress who they really are.
It's a huge question, and it feels almost overwhelming at times. But it's also a call to action.
It is.
It's a challenge for all of us to look at the messages we're sending to girls, the expectations we place upon them, and the ways we may be contributing to that girl poisoning that Pipher describes.
It's a call to create a world where girls are free to be strong and vulnerable, curious and confident, ambitious and compassionate, without fear of judgment or rejection.
Totally.
It's about embracing all of who they are, not just the parts that fit neatly into some predetermined mold.
So what can we do? What concrete steps can we take to make a difference?
It starts with awareness, understanding the challenges girls face and the pressures they're under.
Yeah.
It's about really listening to them without judgment or dismissal. It's about supporting their dreams, celebrating their strengths, and helping them develop the confidence and resilience they need to thrive.
And I think it's also about challenging those cultural norms that limit their potential.
Right.
It's about creating spaces where girls feel safe, supported, and empowered to be their authentic selves.
We need to remember that even small actions can have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
A kind word, a moment of encouragement, a willingness to challenge harmful stereotypes. These seemingly small things can have a huge impact on a girl's life.
Yes.
And that's something each one of us can do.
So we encourage you to delve deeper into these issues. Pick up Reviving Ophelia, explore the wealth of resources available on this topic, and most importantly, engage in conversations with the girls in your life. Listen to their experiences, their struggles, their dreams, and find ways to support them on their journey.
Because ultimately, it's about working together to create a world where girls can not only survive, but thrive.
Yes.
A world where they can truly blossom into the strong, authentic, and amazing women they were always meant to be.